Hare Krishna. I want to give a few follow-up points from the video I've just made about the Bliss boys and their offensive statements about Prabhupada's original Gita, the 1972 Macmillan Gita, which Prabhupada called the original manuscript. I want to bring up this letter here. So this is a letter that Prabhupada has written to Jayadwaita in 1972. He says, "My dear Jayadwaita, please accept my blessings. I have received your letter dated the 26th of May 1972 along with the blueprint copies of Bhagavad-gita As It Is from Macmillan Company. It is very nice. So I shall be looking forward to seeing the entire manuscript and book sometime around the 1st of July 1972. Meanwhile, hoping this will find you in good health. Your ever well wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada." So there are some people saying that Prabhupada's he's not seeing the Gita, or he's not somehow seeing the editing. But here we see that Prabhupada is looking forward to seeing the entire manuscript. So Prabhupada, when the Gita was printed, the 1972 Macmillan Gita, Prabhupada received a blueprint copy of it, and he's going to see the full entire manuscript, which is the complete manuscript, the final manuscript, which will go to print, and then he's going to actually get the Gita a little shortly after this. So this is the clear proof that Prabhupada's Macmillan Gita, Prabhupada was fully aware of what was being printed. Now I want to talk a little bit about something these Bliss boys were saying that I mentioned before in my last video, in part 1. They're basically talking about this Arsa Prayoga, and here it's saying here, sorry about that, it's saying here, the Arsa Prayoga doesn't apply to the actual mistakes of Acharya's editors, in our case conditioned souls. If they made mistakes in their editing work, it should be fixed to express what the Acharya intended to express. And then above, I should have started a bit above, the Arsa Prayoga principle, keeping the apparent mistakes of an Acharya as sacred and transcendental, applies to the apparent mistakes of the Acharya. Arsa Prayoga doesn't apply to the actual mistakes of the Acharya's editors, in our case conditioned souls. So they're basically trying to say that, I talked about this in the last video in part 1, but they're trying to basically make a distinction between Prabhupada's words and the editor's work. I want to bring up a little thing here. This is Bhagavad-gita 4.24. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. And in the purport, Prabhupada is saying, this material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together Brahman, or the absolute truth. So what we can understand is that when Prabhupada was engaging people in his service, in Krishna's service, in helping him to produce the manuscript that went to be printed as the Macmillan 1972 Bhagavad-gita As It Is, all the devotees who were engaged in that service, they were contributors and they were making offerings. So they were making an offering for the sake of Krishna conscious. The consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together Brahman, or the absolute truth. So once Prabhupada has approved, look at this picture here, we'll get a nice one without these dudes on it. This one. So you see this picture here. Prabhupada is blessing this, or he's showing his great appreciation that the Bhagavad-gita 1972 Macmillan Gita, which was the final manuscript put into print form, Prabhupada is approving it. After this, devotees were distributing this book like anything. Devotees were reading this. Prabhupada was giving class from it. This is an approved book. And all the service that was, everybody's service that went into producing this book, all the editor's work, Prabhupada approved it. He blessed it. Therefore it has become, how did it say again? The material world can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, so all these devotees, all these editors, all the work that they did, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, so the editors were all contributors, and the result are all combined together Brahman, or the absolute truth. So all the editors' work has become absolute. Okay, they're not Prabhupada. We're not trying to say they've become Prabhupada, but they've become on the spiritual platform. So there is no duality in it. These people, these bliss boys, are trying to say that the editor's work is faulty, but Prabhupada's not faulty. But once Prabhupada's approved something, then according to this Bhagavad Gita here, this verse here, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So all these devotees, all these editors, all their work was also spiritual nature. It was absolute. It was Brahman, the absolute truth. And Prabhupada's approved it. So there is no question their faulty argument. They're trying to make a faulty argument that Arsa Prayoga doesn't apply to the mistakes of the Acharya's editors. It only applies to Prabhupada. This is bogus. This is a bogus argument. Prabhupada's editors, once he approved anything that they've done to help him produce that Gita, once Prabhupada has approved it, that Bhagavad Gita as it is Arsa Prayoga. That means that if there's any fault there in any of it, it should remain as it is. Let's take a look at this Arsa Prayoga principle. I came across this one here in the mid-90s. I remember coming across this. I also included it in the Leelamrita, Prabhupada's authorized autobiography. I included that in the back. So unless one is self-realized, there is practically no use in writing about Krishna. This transcendental writing does not depend on material education. It depends on spiritual realization. You'll find therefore in the comments of the Bhagavatam by different acharyas, even there is some discrepancies, they are accepted as Arsa Prayoga. And that's a Bhagavatam lecture, 7/5/23/24, March 31, 1976. And then Prabhupada goes on, so far you're telling me that some devotees consider that because there may be some grammatical discrepancies in my Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, then they may also be allowed to translate with errors. Accepted. That is just like imitating Ras Leela. When you do all other things like Krishna, then you can do Ras Leela. So if these other writers can do like me and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world by becoming big Vedic scholars, then they can do. If one is too big, there is no mistake. Arsa Prayoga means there may be discrepancies, but it is all alright. Just like Shakespeare, sometimes there are odd uses of language, but he is accepted as authority. I have explained all these things in my preface to the first canto, letter to Mandalibhadra, Jaipur, 20th of January 1972. The thoughts and effects of such revolutionary literature are required, not the grammatical. The so-called rascals, they are concerned with the grammatical, but those who are actually worker, they are concerned with the thoughts. And then Prabhupada here, that's in Room Conversation, including discussion, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.11, January 19th, 1972, Jaipur. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. Prabhupada, the system is, whatever authority has done, even there is mistake, it should be accepted. Radhavalabha, oh, Prabhupada, Arsa Praya, that means Arsa Prayoga. That is, he should not become more learned than the authority. That is very bad. Why finish it? Whatever is done, no more. And then here we've got, although one may be well versed in transcendental science, one should be careful about the offence of Mayadavatikrama, impertinently surpassing a greater personality. So here we see that Prabhupada is saying that even if there are some discrepancies in the Acharya's words or in his writings, then they should remain as they are. They shouldn't be changed. And Prabhupada also said that the next and this is another thing we want to talk about, these people here, these Bliss boys. They're trying to justify themselves going back to the original manuscript and changing it and making their new Gita. But Prabhupada never said go to an original manuscript that wasn't printed. You can't go back to Prabhupada cannot say next printing should be again to the original way. Prabhupada can't say to print again. Next printing should be again. He uses the word again to the original way. You can't say that. If Prabhupada is instructing, like these Bliss boys say, to go back to the manuscript and then from that to make a new edition, they even say to make a new edition. If that's what they're saying, then Prabhupada can't say the word again. I've covered this in the first video anyway. Prabhupada can't say again, next printing should be again to the original way. And we've shown clearly that Prabhupada said the 72 Macmillan Gita is the original manuscript, the original book. So he's saying to go back to that. And all these changes that he's been told about are not changes that were made prior to the 72 Gita. The changes that were made after the printing of the Gita. Another important thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about the Bliss boys. And I want to say, what I want to say about the Bliss boys is that the Bliss boys, they are not purified men who are thoroughly honest, because in the Srimad Bhagavatam it says, in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, text 11, Prabhupada said, on the other hand, or this is Sukadeva Goswami, Sukadeva Goswami, I think, and Prabhupada's going to give the purport. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation full of transcendental words, directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Prabhupada's going down here, and then I want to read this section. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature conveying transcendental messages for reviving the God consciousness of the people in general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in an adequate language, especially in a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies. Let me read that again. Will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies despite our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of society will still accept this due to its being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is a fire in a house, the inmates of the house go to get help from the neighbours who may be foreigners, and yet without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves and the neighbours understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast his transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be great success. So I want to go back to this. Prabhupada, he is very clear that such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. And as we know, the Bliss boys, these are the Bliss boys here. The Bliss boys, they say that about Prabhupada's Gita, they say, what is the practical use? What is the practical use of a so-called approved book? So they've rejected the 1972 Macmillan Gita because they consider it full of mistakes. So therefore they've rejected it. And here we see Prabhupada is saying here, or Sukadeva Goswami, this is the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's also comment on it, saying that it will certainly fail and have literary discrepancies. But despite our honest attempt to present it in a proper way, there's going to be literary discrepancies. But we are sure with all our faults, the subject matter will be taken into serious consideration. And here we see in the translation that such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So this Purajay, Makanchar, Ramachandra, all these guys, these Bliss boys, they have rejected Prabhupada's 1972 Bhagavad Gita. They've rejected it. They say it's not, it's full of mistakes, and therefore it's practically useless, they say. What is the practical use of it, they're saying? And they've rejected it. I can even show you, where is it now? Here, even here they're given a class, one of them's given a class, and they have another Gita here which they're using. And I also read somewhere else here that they're even translating, they're even working on it now. For instance, it's saying here, this is Purajay, it's just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. The self-realized master will initiate you by knowledge because he has seen the truth. So they're even in the process of working on their re-editions. They're going to change Prabhupada's books just like Jayadvaita, and here we see them with, they don't even have the Macmillan Gita, they're not giving class from it, they're giving a class from their re-edition here. So according to Bhagavatam, if you are rejecting Srila Prabhupada's 1972 original Macmillan Gita, which he blessed, which look at the ecstasy Prabhupada has. Look at this. He was so much pleased with this Bhagavad Gita, which was the original manuscript. This was the last manuscript which Prabhupada approved. He told Jayawera he's going to look at it, and then it went for print, and Prabhupada received the first book, and he's so blessed by this book, and this book was distributed by devotees. Now these Bliss boys have rejected this book, and according to Srimad Bhagavatam, honest people, what did you say? That even transcendental literatures like Prabhupada's Macmillan Gita, even though it's imperfectly composed, they are heard, sung and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So these guys don't accept the Macmillan Gita. They've rejected it. They don't accept it. They don't hear it. They don't sing it. They've started to make their own version of it. So therefore they're not purified men, and they're not thoroughly honest. The Bliss boys are not purified men. They're contaminated men, and they're crooked. They're like Jayadvaita. They're not honest. They're not purified. They're contaminated. And they're not thoroughly honest. They're thoroughly crooked. I want to bring this up as well. This is a letter Prabhupada wrote to Radhavallabha, 76. He's saying, please accept my blessings. I'm due receipt of your letter dated April 22, 1976. I have noted the contents with care. Yes, there is no need for corrections in the first and second cantos. Whatever is there is all right. So this is exactly the same instruction as when Prabhupada said they cannot change anything. When he said next printing should be again to the original way, then he went on to finish that by saying they cannot change anything. So this is exactly the same as this instruction. He's saying, yes, there is no need for corrections in the first and second cantos. Whatever is there is all right. And that's 76. This is about a year before, but it's the same instruction. It's the same. Next printing should be again the original way. So the first canto, second canto, the Bhagavad Gita, the first printings of these books, like the 1972 Gita, Prabhupada said there's no need for any corrections to these books. They should go back and be printed as they were first printed. Very clear. And then there's another thing here. You can pause this and read it all yourself. I just want to go to this bit. Do not try to change anything without my permission. This is again in 76. So the whole mood of Srila Prabhupada is that people cannot touch his books without his permission. So when Prabhupada is not physically present, then nobody has the right to change anything. Arsa Prayoga, even if there are some discrepancies in our mind. How is it put here? Prabhupada, this of course should be strictly forbidden, so no corrections. That makes it simple. They can divide the synonyms, that's all, synonyms. So even that is his tendency to correct. That's very bad. He should not do that. So I'll just forget this then. The system is whatever authority has done, even there is some mistake, it should be accepted. Oh, Prabhupada, Arsa Prayoga, that is hot. He should not become more learned than the authority. That is very bad habit. This is Pupajit. He thinks he's more learned than Prabhupada. Prabhupada approved the 72 Gita. He told us to go back and print it again the original way. This guy's twisting Prabhupada's words, saying he can go back to the manuscripts before the final manuscript went for print. He can go back to them, start looking at them, and then he can produce his own Gita. Well, he's a conditioned soul. He's going to make mistakes. He's saying that Hayagriva, Rai Ram and all these devotees, when they edited, they made mistakes. Well, Prabhupada approved that. He approved their work, and their work became transcendental also. It became on the same absolute platform with Prabhupada. Therefore, that is also Arsa Prayoga. You can't say that you can change Prabhupada's books because it's mixed. The fact that you say the books are mixed, that the Prabhupada and Rai Ram and Hayagriva, that in itself is an offensive mentality. Once Prabhupada's approved the book, it's all transcendental. All the editor's work has been consumed in the fire of sacrifice, and Prabhupada's accepted it. It's all become transcendental. And if you try to twist Prabhupada's words to say you can go to the manuscript, the previous manuscripts that were being worked on, Prabhupada gave the final manuscript for printing. That became 1972 Macmillan Gita. So if you say you can backtrack and go back, that's like saying, like, if I'm printing some incense pouches, when I give my final incense pouch to the printer, say print that incense pouch, that's the one that I've approved, that's the final thing, that's what I want to be printed. So you're going to go back to my previous pouches which were not quite right, and you're going to look at them, and then you're going to make your own pouch from that. That's what you're doing. These guys are Jayadwaita and these Purajit, these Bliss boys, they're going back to Prabhupada's you could say the drafts that they were working on, and they're going to go to them and produce their own Gita. So you're becoming trying to be more learned than Prabhupada. Prabhupada's already given us, he's given his approval to the final manuscript and told it to be printed. Then he told us to print again. When he heard there were changes to that 72 Macmillan Gita, he asked for it to be printed again. All the books should be printed again to the original format which Prabhupada had approved. And all this editing that was done after this, the editions that were printed with Prabhupada's approval, then they were just changing them at their whim and making unnecessary editing which Prabhupada hadn't approved. So to stop this business, Prabhupada just said, go back to the original. It's like reset, go back to the original. which have approved, and print them again, and that's it. And then you can't use the logic that the mistakes, so I can change them even without Prabhupada's approval. That's, you're trying to become more learned than the authority. Why finish it? Whatever is done is done. See, Prabhupada saying it here, whatever is done is done. So whatever, even if there are some mistakes, it's done. Prabhupada's approved it, it's printed, it's done, no more. Well, now what is the system of no correction? Well, now that this system of no corrections anywhere, that makes it very simple. Then he can't do anything. I don't think he wants to either. It makes it more simple for him. It makes him very uncomfortable. Prabhupada, no corrections. So it's clear, no corrections. Prabhupada's in 77, February 77, all Prabhupada's messages around 76, 77 is, you can't do anything without me sanctioning it. What was it again? What we read? Do not try to change anything without my permission. Then we have the Rascal Editor's conversation where Prabhupada says next printed should be the original way, they cannot change anything. And then he's saying even if there's some fault, finish, no more corrections, just print the original way. It's all very simple and clear. And these people, these Bliss boys, are exactly like Jay Adwaita, and they think they can change Prabhupada's books and go back to the manuscripts which were in a working process, and they can go to them and then produce their own Bhagavad Gita. Like I showed you, look at these guys, they have their own Gita here and they're giving classes from it. They won't give a class from Prabhupada's 72 Gita because they've rejected it, and they've rejected it because they're not purified men, they're contaminated men, and they're not thoroughly honest, they're crooked.